Deep inside human cells, right at this very moment, the genetic signature of the male sex is literally dissolving. This chart tracks the physical mass of the male Y chromosome over millions of years. It has shed 97% of its original genetic code. Today, it's hanging on by a mere 3% sliver, and geneticists project it's on a direct trajectory to vanish completely. Meanwhile, the female X chromosome is doing the exact opposite. It is actively maintaining its code, patching its biological errors, and thriving generation after generation. To understand why one cellular structure is surviving while the other collapses, we have to step out of the microscopic world and look at the survival rules that governed history's most powerful ancient empires. In ancient Egypt, the pharaohs viewed themselves as living gods. To maintain that divine status, they refused to mix their lineage with outsiders, insisting on keeping their royal bloodlines absolutely pure. That extreme practice of royal inbreeding reached its peak with King Tutankhamun. His family's isolated genetic pool created a public facade of royal perfection, but beneath that gold mask, his biological reality was failing. He suffered from severe bone disorders and asymmetrical facial features, and a frail body requiring a cane to walk, dying at just 19 years old. Centuries later, the European Habsburg dynasty attempted the exact same strategy. By intermarrying exclusively within their own family, they developed a pronounced protruding lower face, a trait so common across the lineage it became known as the Habsburg jaw. The biological failure in both empires was identical. When genetic material is isolated from outside sources, defective genes continuously compound. Without fresh DNA to overwrite the errors, every physical flaw is passed down and magnified in the next generation. Isolated DNA that cannot mix and physically repair itself is on a direct path to catastrophic genetic collapse. It is a biological law that tears down royal dynasties, and right now, it is tearing down the male chromosome. If we zoom back down deep inside a human cell, we can see how biology usually prevents this kind of collapse. Healthy human chromosomes almost always operate in identical pairs. When one chromosome takes damage or develops a mutation, it uses its twin as a reference point. They physically exchange data, swapping out the broken code and patching the error, a process known as recombination. Because biological females inherit two X chromosomes, their genetic code has a built-in partner. Those two X chromosomes constantly recombine and update their internal software. This constant patching provides compounding biological advantages. Females generally have sharper color perception because the genes for red and green receptors are housed and continuously optimized on the X chromosomes. It is also a key reason why women, on average, live longer than men. Biological resilience requires a genetic partner to cross-check the data. Without that second set of matching instructions, any error in the code becomes permanent. This exposes the critical design flaw in the male biological system. The Y chromosome is entirely alone. Because there is no second Y chromosome to pair with, it cannot engage in recombination. When a sudden mutation or genetic defect appears on the male chromosome, there is no backup copy to overwrite the mistake. To prevent unfixable deformities from destroying the entire organism, the body resorts to a drastic measure. It simply deletes the corrupted sections of the Y chromosome entirely. This visualization maps the result of that deletion process. From an original starting point of nearly 1,500 genes, the genetic data has been falling off a cliff. Today, the male Y chromosome contains just 45 active genes. The Y chromosome is suffering from the exact same terminal isolation that doomed ancient royalty. Lacking a partner to repair its failing code, it is systematically deleting itself into oblivion. So, what happens to the male sex when those final 45 genes are deleted and the Y chromosome vanishes completely? We actually have an answer, because specific animal species, like the Japanese spiny rat and Eastern European mole voles, have already crossed this genetic cliff. In these ardent populations, the Y chromosome is completely gone, yet healthy biological males still exist, reproducing and functioning normally. Nature found a workaround. Before the Y chromosome finished dissolving, the essential genetic data required to determine the male sex physically migrated. It jumped onto an entirely different, healthy pair of chromosomes. It proves biology does not easily surrender to a system flaw. When the underlying hardware begins to fail, nature actively reroutes the essential functions to bypass the damage. Applying this rodent evolutionary patch to the human timeline leaves geneticists with a massive question. Will human DNA permanently halt its own degradation, or will it be forced to execute this same genetic reorganization? If our male code does jump to a new chromosome, it will establish a completely new biological mechanism for sex determination in humans. The eventual disappearance of the Y chromosome doesn't mean the end of men. It signals the start of a new genetic architecture. Just as it did for those rodents, human biology may survive by simply moving its most essential instructions to a more stable home.